is Her Excellency Sheikha Lubna Al Qasimi. Sheikha Lubna is one of the Arab world's most powerful and passionate female leaders. Earlier this year, she was appointed to a newly created role as Minister of Tolerance for the UAE. In this role, she's responsible for reinforcing the UAE's values of openness, diversity, and acceptance. Prior to her new appointment, Sheikha Lubna held several other cabinet positions serving in the ministries of economy, foreign trade, and international cooperation and development. When she was appointed as Minister of Economy back in 2004, she became the first woman in UAE history to hold a cabinet position. Sheikha Lubna, thank you so much for joining us. So after that incredibly illustrious career that I just recited to you, we're going to get down to basics here because, in fact, before she went on to do all of this, Sheikha Lubna was a computer geek at Cal State Chico. At the same time, I was at Berkeley, not far away, in Northern California.
Not much difference.
Except that Cal State Chico was known as the party school, probably Berkeley too, but you were a computer geek. And this was the late 70s. We weren't exactly using computers. How did you end up so far away studying such a forward-thinking, looking technology?
Thank you for the question, and good afternoon. It's a great pleasure to be here. I was 17 years old. I studied science, and I had so much passion for math and physics at the time. And part of my reading, I came across a lot of knowledge on computers at that time, and it was shocking for my family. I actually scored very well at high school in science, and everybody wanted me to be a doctor, and I don't want to be a doctor. I want to be computer science. So it was a bit odd, but
and you told your mother you discovered the secret of life?
Yes, yeah, I did at the age of 13. I came home and I told my mom, now I realize what life is all about. And she said, why? I said, we started learning physics. And she just looked at me. She didn't think. But to me, math and sciences, but math and physics really made life with a lot of sense. That's how I understood life. And at the beginning, it was a bit of a challenge, because there's no one thinks or talks about computers. No one knew about them. Mm-hmm. That was 1975. Second, I came from a sheltered environment where the girls are really very protected. And the idea of traveling all the way to the UK at that time, and then eventually to California, was a bit of a difficult decision for my parents. However, my brother supported me. And I remember first 2 years, my brother would actually travel with me all the way to the US and then come back. And then I bribed them to just stay in London and I continue on my own. But the challenge was that I was very determined. This was something I really wanted to do. And to me, when I think of my life all throughout, that was probably the best decision I have ever made in my entire life. Not knowing my background of what are the chances of technology, what's going to happen, but I mean, I came from binary digits and computers that looked like washing machines and dishwashers,
yeah.
You know, big ones. And look today, everything in our life is all about technology.
And you took that skill back to the private sector in the UAE and eventually became CEO of a company that was business-to-business e-commerce?
Yes.
Correct?
This was I started working for about 7 years at Dubai Ports Authority, and I was in charge of the automation for Dubai Ports, which is considered one of the top 3 ports worldwide. But from there, in year 2000, I started up for the government. I started up the Tujari.com, and it was, at that time, this was the big deal of the .coms, of the electronic marketplaces. And within 6 months, all the companies went bust worldwide. And we really have to figure out the business model that relates to the environment, to the country itself. And within 5 years, I turned it around, we made profits, and it had high valuation at that time.
So you kind of just slid through the whole Dubai Ports thing, but she created software to automate what is now one of the top 3 ports in the world, which is pretty astonishing.
The Dubai Ports, thank you. I joined Dubai Ports in 1993, and they were embarking on a very big and ambitious automation plan and a strategy for their technology. And you have to remember, Dubai is actually inside the Gulf. It's not on the east side of the UAE. And that is a challenge because turning around ship and getting ships to get into Dubai and out meant you have to shorten the cycle of the travel itself and then handling the ship of discharging, offloading the containers. So the idea at the port was really to look at every mechanism around the two ports they had, Jebel Ali and Port Rashid, to minimize that time for efficiency and to load the ship for the next port of destination. So I had about 100 employees in technology, and we used the best technology, and I actually introduced some of the technology that at that time was not really well understood at Dubai ports. However, until today, a lot of the applications of the technology they use is actually the work that we have done at that time.
And then, if you all remember when Dubai Ports tried to buy ports in the United States and it became a big national security brouhaha, you were sent over as the Dubai secret weapon to try to change everybody's mind in the United States. Didn't end well, but it worked.
Well, what was interesting, I mean, but it's a very interesting turning point for me. At this time, with the Dubai ports debacle, I was appointed as the Minister of Economy. But because of my work at Dubai ports, the government decided that I could do some lobbying in the U.S. with the Congress and the government as well. And for me, it was more of understanding why this happened. We did a lot of lobbying. There's a lot of apologies, but the real story was that the Dubai ports acquired P&O, and P&O had ports worldwide. 6 of them were in the U.S. And there was a lot of doubts. There was a lot of skepticism about having an Arab country, Muslim country, trying to do this, especially when you talk about post-September 11. There was a lot of anxieties, a lot of fear. Dubai ports managed worldwide to do some of the best ports in terms of operation, and they actually led the way where they're positioned right now. But when I came from there with an opinion, and this was the government opinion, that sometimes as governments, we have a strong relationship. The U.S. is one of our largest trading partner throughout till today, and actually we are the #1 trading partner for them in the region. And we took it for granted because I would go to Washington, D.C., and most of our trips as government to go to Washington, we didn't realize that actually neither UAE or Dubai was really known or well understood throughout the states. And that's the part where you take it for granted that as a country with so much trade and operation that it's known. No, it wasn't known. Yeah. And the other part of it is we thought, well, maybe we didn't win the 6 sports, but at least Dubai became famous. So that was the other side. That was the upside of this whole story. But since then, we started to work much closely throughout the U.S. We have more of 2 consul general in addition to our ambassador in LA and Boston. We have a major operation with our airlines as well. And we have delegations from the UAE business-wise going to the U.S. all the time. But we do have a big number of congressmen, businesses that come to the UAE more often than before. And this in itself really was, for us, it was the lesson learned from this Dubai ports.
And I actually first met you in Dubai. You gave a very charismatic speech to a group. It was fascinating, a room full of entrepreneur women from the Middle East, everybody wearing everything from headscarves to Beatles t-shirts. It was what a range of women. And you talked about a couple things. One was overcoming fear and anxiety, but also overcoming a fear of failure as a woman. Talk about that.
People who sit here may remember, the women who sit here may remember or may not remember that at some point in their life, all of us had some fear of failure. And a lot of it is trying to prove ourselves, sometimes in uncharted territory. And this is something that I keep seeing quite a lot. And sometimes women may not talk about it, but they would be hesitant to really push the envelope for themselves for the reason that they think somebody's going to say they failed. See, I told you. And this is one subject that I talk about all the time, even at as a president of Zayed University. I have 9,000 girls in my university. That is important to talk about it. We all fail. I mean, at some points in our life, but the most important part that we learn from our failure, we fall forward. And a lot of times, we actually learn more from our failures than we learn of our mistakes rather than learn from our successes. So to me, it's a subject that still remains in my mind, and I think it's important that we encourage women to do what they want, and they can redefine their path as they go forward. Just because they failed at some points should not, that should make them solid. It should not make them hesitant and push backward.
I love that term, fall forward.
Forward. It's not mine. I think it is an American term. I don't want to claim the credit for it.
So you've had a number of cabinet posts, but you now have this newly created cabinet post of Minister for Tolerance. There's also a newly created cabinet post, Minister of Happiness.
And Youth.
And Youth. There's a Minister of Youth. But what's interesting, and particularly about your position now, we've seen the rise of a group that embodies the exact opposite, which is intolerance and hate, and that's ISIS. And we've seen through Orlando this week what that has led to. What are your efforts on that front, and what is your thinking about youth that are drawn to ISIS?
First of all, the new cabinet reshuffle took place in February of this year, and it really raised a lot of eyebrows, people thinking, why would you think of two values being a cabinet position? Because usually ministries or cabinet positions are there to serve the people, and you serve it through some services. And these are two value-driven, and youth as well. And interestingly, the three positions are held by women. And the Minister of Youth is 22 years old. Her job is not to look after the age of my nephews and nieces, but for the generation after. We need to listen to the youth. We need to understand their needs and their demand. The United Arab Emirates is a country that has 80% of its population as expatriate community who come and live in the UAE. They find their path in terms of their economically, in terms of what they want to do, whether they're entrepreneurs or they're working for a company. We have over 200 nationalities that live in the UAE. The different religions are practiced. We have over 44 churches in the UAE, as well as some of the Hindus and Sikh worshipping centers. So I got asked about why, if UAE is considered to be a tolerant country, and we just moved from the 8th in an index for competitiveness on the IMD, and just recently, about 2 weeks ago, from the a ranking of 8 to the ranking of 3 in terms of competitiveness related to coexistence and tolerance. What I'm saying, and what the government is saying, is to put a national plan to look across the weave in the society itself, whether it's private sector, companies, people, to look at what really makes it work and make it good for tolerance and coexistence in the society. And look after and start to look at where we think there are flaws. There's no perfect countries. I mean, we try our best, but we learn and we keep continue for improvement. But to look at this as a national plan and make sure whether it's targeting youth, whether you're looking at children, you're looking at society, you're looking at multinational existence, whatever it takes. But it is very, very crucial. And this day and age, with the environment that we're in, especially in the Middle East, I mean, with the surrounding problems that we have, with the rise of ISIS that now had taken the world by surprise in terms of darkness, and it's no longer an organization that exists and impacts the Middle East. It's everywhere, and it's a contradiction of an entity, a cult that drives with the name of God, I think, in a way that actually contradicts the purpose of all religions and all spiritual beliefs. And for us, it's Islam being hijacked by ISIS. So we need to go back to the table to talk, to create dialogue. I just came from 2 trips, actually, before coming to here. I was in Denmark for the Interfaith Dialogue, and this is a conference that takes place every year between Christians and Muslims and Jews, and it's a marvelous interfaith conference that it has. I also went and met with Pope Francis. I was in the Vatican, and I extended invitation to visit the United Arab Emirates. But what we're seeing today tells us that this is alarming. We need to wake up. We need to look at ourselves, and we need to communicate. We need to go back to our values, and we need to work together. This is something that we all have to work together. We can't do it alone, and I don't think the US or any other place can do it alone. But going back to the dialogue, and whether it's in interfaith or in religions, I think in other aspects or in cultural aspects or ethnic backgrounds, I think it's very crucial. In the UAE, we have several organizations. One is Hidayah, and this is a center that looks after radicalization and terrorism, and we have partners worldwide. We have also a council of thinkers worldwide that comes through religious heads, and that in itself also creates a dialogue. And there's one other entity where we grouped with the United States government, again, against radicalization and extremism, where we work together.
Well, Your Excellency, we wish you the best of luck in that enterprise. You're at the forefront of the most important issue of our times. Thank you so much.
Thank you.